Alright, so in this video I wanted to go over how you can farm the new Nightfall weapon, which is the Slammer. It is a stasis sword vortex frame that has some pretty good perks. It rolls with cold steel, which basically slows and shatters targets, so it's basically, it could have intrinsic overload and unstoppable champion counters. With the cold steel perk, it also has bait and switch, which is a 30% damage buff, so it's not a bad choice to use against certain dungeon and raid bosses. So overall, it's a pretty good sword, and I was farming this last night, and I realized that some people commenting on my community posts and elsewhere that I've seen posting are just kind of having a hard time farming it. They may be new lights, they may not have a clan, they may not have friends that play the game, or maybe they just have a lot of social anxiety and they're kind of stuck playing solo. If you're truly stuck playing solo and you refuse to play with people for whatever reasons, no judgment at all, you can always do hero Nightfalls, and you do have, I believe it's an uncommon drop rate. Let's go check out the playlist, because we're gonna have to go over this anyways, just to kind of discuss how you can farm it, how you can be mission ready, Grandmaster ready, how to farm it as a solo player, and then using the Fireteam Finder and LFG, creating your own posts versus joining others. What kind of build you might want to take into or look for to help you farm it, and then we'll go over the sword, and maybe even a build example for the sword, and also how to get platinum if you're doing it on Grandmaster, especially because platinum is going to guarantee you the adept version of the sword on GM, and I believe platinum on Legend and Master, probably Hero, will also give you an increased drop rate for the sword. So here we go. We have the Nightfall weapon this week, which is the Slammer. So it's an uncommon drop rate from Hero Nightfalls. So it means that, I don't know what that exact ratio is, but it's probably like a 1 in 5 drop rate. Because in my experience, a common drop rate is roughly a 50-50 chance. You can do Legend for common, you have a better chance there, or you can do Master. But generally speaking, if you can do Legend or Master, you shouldn't have any problem doing Grandmaster. They're basically the same difficulty. Legend caps you at -15 under power. Master caps you at -20 under power. Additionally, on Legend and Master, maybe not Legend, but on Master, you have the exact same number of champions as Grandmaster, but look at, you have this modifier that you do not have on Grandmaster, which is togetherness, and this is actually one of the worst modifiers that you can play with. So I would say doing this Nightfall on Master will actually be more difficult than doing it on Grandmaster, because there's only a 5 power differential between the two, which is basically not noticeable. And togetherness is going to basically make your recovery stat obsolete, because you don't get any health regen unless you're near your teammates. So basically you have to either use a build that can restore your health, or you got to be with teammates. So you're definitely not going to be doing this solo, unless you're competent at doing that. But this is kind of more of a how-to guide on farming Nightfalls and getting the sword and even getting the adept. So I can tell you for this week, you're better off doing Grandmaster than Master. The only downside to GMs is if your team wipes, you obviously go back to orbit, and you have a limited number of revives, right? But yeah, so here's the modifiers for the Grandmaster. As you can see, togetherness is not there. You do have disabled radar, which is in basically every GM chafe, and then you've got the same modifiers and surges and everything like that, right? So if you have not run the Corrupted, which is the Nightfall this week, it's probably not wise to just hop straight into Grandmaster. Just go ahead and run it a few times on Hero. Matchmaking is on, so you can't complain about not having a fire team to do this. You literally just queue into a random team. Unlimited revives, you can switch your loadout during the Nightfall. experiment with your build, and you're going to learn basically how the mission works, right? You're not going to get the same knowledge from the GM as like where all the champions are, because you get less champions in Hero Nightfalls than you do in GMs. But generally speaking, you'll learn how the mechanics of the mission work, where certain key targets are, and how to get platinum. You can figure all that out on Hero. You can run it over and over again, and you can get a lot of materials this way too. It's great for building up enhancement cores and prisms, so you can do that. So once you've done that a few times, and obviously once you're at the right power level, it says recommended power 1840, but really, as long as you're 1820 or 1815, then you're basically capped. Anything above 1815, it makes no difference, because the GM hard caps you at 25 under power. Right, so it's kind of a weird recommendation. It should say the power of the enemies is 1840. You're capped at 1815, right? Because obviously nobody could be 1840. Well, I mean, you can with the seasonal artifact, but it doesn't make a difference. All of your gear is capped at 1810. Nothing's above that, and even with the artifact mod, you can only go 5 power above that, and that's as effective as you can be. So once you get to know the Nightfall, then you can hop into GM, and you're going to have to find a fire team unless you want to do it solo. If you're that competent, go ahead and do it. You probably don't need to be watching this video. So I'm going to show you how to use Fireteam Finder, because this is matchmaking, right? People complain that there's no matchmaking in raids and dungeons and higher end activities, but there is. It's just manual, and it makes sense because when you're in a end game mission, you need a fire team leader. If somebody in the fire team isn't cooperating, or doesn't have a mic, or doesn't want to communicate, or is throwing, or is AFK, there needs to be a leader that can kick that person and replace them, right? So that's just how endgame PvE works in this game, and I think I would rather see that than automatic matchmaking. Automatic matchmaking for low-end activities is just fine, but for endgame, you don't want to be wasting people's time. If you're going to be sent back to orbit for a team wipe after spending like 30 to 60 minutes in a Nightfall, that's not fun, right? And that's something that you would experience more in automatic matchmaking. So one of the things you could do is you can use Fireteam Finder. You can also use the LFG app, right? So Destiny 2 has an official app on your phone. You download the app, and then you go over to Fireteam Finder. Right now it's going through a beta on the mobile version of this, right, which synchronizes with the in-game Fireteam Finder, but you can still access the old LFG system that's on the app. With that system, you can type in exactly what you want out of Fireteam, or you can search through different posts. Like, you can actually control the text. With Fireteam Finder, we don't have the freedom to make our own text. So this is what I would do. I still prefer using the old LFG because I can custom make the title of the group if I'm making the party, and I can type in what I want. Like, I can say GM know what to do, or GM farming, invis, and well preferred, right? So generally speaking, for GM Nightfalls, invis, if you're doing this with random people that you don't know, people that might not even have a mic, and that might be okay, but if they should have decent builds for that kind of scenario. And I find that Night Stalkers and Well Locks are basically the best two subclasses to go into GM Nightfalls with random people, because Night Stalker, you can pull off revives, so there's kind of the solid rock, and Well Radiance, everybody can survive in that, and then the third person in the group is just kind of it could be different, right? But really, you can just do every single GM with just Night Stalkers and Well Locks, and that would probably be the most consistent way to do it on LFG or Fireteam Finder with randoms, right? So going over the Fireteam Finder here, we have the Corrupted, and I'm in search right now. So looking for group, that says nothing. Here's the level 8. So this might, they do have a solo flawless emblem, so that could be, they could potentially know what they're doing. I just accidentally joined, I didn't mean to. Let's see, leave lobby. Farming, looking for group, right? So everything is very non-specific, right? So you're really kind of gambling your time joining in those groups. You can make your own group, and generally this might be for more experienced players that feel like they can lead the fire team. They can handle the pressure of being the fire team leader, and controlling the party. Right now, obviously, if you're making the post, you don't want to be like asking people to carry you, or it's your prerogative to do so, but generally if you want to lead a fire team, then you should kind of be able to hold your own for the most part. So I'm still not on. Okay, create, right? So I'm gonna create my own fire team. I'm gonna try and custom make it, and I don't want to like clog up the whole freaking text under the title with several tags, because if you notice in the search, if people have too many tags, you can't even read them all. So it's just too cluttered, right? That's why I like just the LFG on the mobile app, because you can just type in exactly what you want. But you can kind of do that here. So listing title, I'm going to go over to goals, because I can put farming. Generally, if you put farming in your title, it's going to signal to people that you know what you're doing, because you're not going to be farming any kind of weapon or any loot out of an activity unless you know how to do it efficiently, right? If you're just looking for that single completion, then you're not farming. If you haven't done it yet, you're not farming. You're only farming it once you're basically competent at doing the mission. And I've kind of explained how you can get competent just by starting in hero and working your way up. But this video is more about farming the new Nightfall weapon, and any Nightfall weapon, right? So I'm going to put farming on there, and then I could, if I want, I can go down here. This is actually a pretty good way to do it. Rank 10, depending on what your rank is and whether or not you want to feel like a hypocrite. So for me, I'm a Paragon. I'm rank 11. I don't care. I can ask for people to be 10 and up. It's not to say that an adventurer or a veteran can't hold their own. They certainly could. It's just you are filtering out the people that generally have more experience in endgame activities by requiring a 10, right? So like the best players in the world could be 6s, and I know there are several of the best players in Destiny 2 do not care about ranks at all. But look, we're not going on Fireteam Finder to find the best players in the world to help carry us through a farming run on a Nightfall. Like, we're getting random people, average players, below average to slightly above average. Like, that's what you can expect. And so this rank system is actually a good way to determine whether people have a certain amount of experience, right? So I can do 10 and up. I've got farming, and then that would be sufficient, right? I have two criteria here, which tells people that you should know what you're doing, you should be competent, and you should be able to prove it by being ranked 10 or higher. So I could do that. You could also add tags, but I don't find these tags to be very pertinent. You could put fast, but no, just don't clutter it up. Keep it simple. Rank 10 and up farming should get you the players that you need. But the LFG I find is better because you can specify with custom text, invis or well preferred. That's almost always what I do when I'm farming GMs. If I make a group, I put GM farming, invis or well preferred, and then we're good to go, right? And also by setting up your fire team like that properly, you could even get away with just muting yourself the entire time, or your fire team members don't even have to use their mic. Communication isn't always necessary in GMs. In fact, I would say it rarely is, especially if you're asking for people that are experienced. Nobody really needs to talk. So social anxiety in that sense shouldn't really be a factor at all. You're just playing the game in the exact same way that you would if you were matchmaking into a hero Nightfall. If nobody has a mic and nobody's communicating, and everybody knows what they're doing, right? And there's no social anxiety there to block that. And I know a lot about social anxiety. I'm highly antisocial. So yeah, it's not that bad. You just gotta find your way to do it, and you can go in and farm these things. Right, so I've kind of gone over the benefits of creating your own versus joining. If you're going to join somebody else's fire team, then I would suggest you go with a meta loadout, like a meta build, right? So you can go with Night Stalker, with Omnioculus. That's what I did last night. Because generally, if you're going to join other people, you're going to have better luck on Invis or Well. People are going to accept you into their group more readily if you're able to support them in some way, right? So the fact that I have Omnioculus on Night Stalker, people know that I'm going to be able to, be that last guardian standing and get those revives off and play it safe, right? So this is what I ran. Malfeasance, there's taken enemies in the corrupted, so it's great. The wild style grenade launcher, I was also using the Iclos sniper to proc radiant from the seasonal artifact, but it's up to you. I felt like a little bit of extra crowd control would help, so I went with the wild style. Plus it's solar, so it's benefiting from the surge, because this week we have surge, and the surges are stasis and solar. And rocket launchers are overload, so this gets a 25% buff as well. Bipod on a high impact frame, you get like I want to say 15 or 16 rockets. So you can pretty much use this like liberally, compared to like an Apex Predator, which is an adaptive or aggressive. I can't remember. I think it's adaptive, but high impacts and precisions have more rockets than the latter. So you're generally, for Nightfalls, I find now that high impacts with bipod is going to go a long ways, because you're basically just dealing with champions and mini bosses. You're not dealing with like dungeon and raid bosses. So yeah, you can go, if you're not a hunter, you can go on Warlock, or if you're a Titan, that's where it kind of gets a little bit more iffy, right? Generally, if you're a Titan, you should be a little bit more competent in farming these things, and maybe you should be the one to post your own fire team. That way you can ask for Invis or Well preferred, and then you can just be that third person that's providing whatever the Titan can provide. And I know that Titans can provide a lot, because I'm a Titan main, and there's a lot of effective builds, but just generally speaking, with randoms in the community of doing GM Nightfalls and LFG and Fireteam Finder, Night Stalkers and Wells are your best bet, right? Titans kind of are more niche, and the Titan has to be very adept at their build and the gameplay that comes with that. So yeah, that pretty much covers the builds and how to make and join fire teams. Another thing here is every single run that you do where you get platinum, you will get 2 Nightfall ciphers. And if you see here, you can hold, actually spent all mine, so I don't have any left here, but you can hold 10, and they'll be in your inventory right there. And then, so that means if you do 5 GM completions, you'll have 10 ciphers, which means that you can then come here and you could literally just buy an adept slammer, right? Providing you got the ciphers, providing you did the GMs, you just get a free one. So you do 5 GMs, you go back to Zavala, you get a free one. If it's double loot week, which it isn't this week, but some weeks there's double loot, it means you're going to get 4 ciphers per strike. So that means that every 3 strikes, you got to make sure you go see Zavala and get that extra free adept roll from him, because it's because it's capped at 10. If you just keep it capped at 10 and keep doing GMs over and over, you're literally just wasting your time, because you could have had that much more loot, right? It's basically 20% more loot. So don't forget to do that. And another thing is I'm not sure if getting platinum or not affects the number of ciphers that you get, or if you get any at all. Like if you just get gold, maybe you don't get ciphers. I'm not 100% sure. But just a note on getting platinum in the corrupted, there is there's kind of that cathedral room with the two ogres where you transport between the hive and the taken realm. So you got the hive ogre and you got the taken ogre. In the hive room, there's going to be one unstoppable, and you need to kill the unstoppable before you kill the ogre. Because if you kill the ogre, then the unstoppable despawns. Then you don't get platinum. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, but that's the way to do it to be safe. Same goes for the Taken Realm, except in the Taken Realm you have two unstoppable champions, right? So make sure that you take out the three champions between those two worlds before you take out the two ogres. And then after that, there is, when you get into the kind of the space rock area where you're descending down towards Sadia, that basically there's an overload right at the start of, like, sitting on that first island that you got to go traverse to. That overload tends to jump off the map, and if you don't tag the overload and he jumps off the map, you will not get platinum. So you need to make sure that you either, quickly eliminate that overload, or you consistently tag him. And I just learned from Chablo91 today, check him out, his channel, Solo GM Master, that you need to actually sustain that tagging of that champion. Because if he restores his health, and then he's not tagged for, like, say 30 seconds, then he jumps off, you're still not going to get credit for killing him, right? So you need to make sure that you consistently tag him or kill him to make sure that you actually get the credit for killing the champion. So those are the kind of the key champs. There's also a trick at the beginning of the Corrupted where you can kill the first overload at the very beginning, then you can go right, and you can go all the way right, take your sparrow if you want, and then you're going to get to this trail to the ogre, and then you can just take out the ogre, leave the other enemies alone, and then you can go straight into the building and avoid spawning the other overloads. If the other overloads do not spawn, then you will still get platinum. If they do spawn, then you need to take care of them. Basically, that's how it works. So yeah. And then as far as the actual slammer goes, I put together this build. Actually, I already had this build. I had a Foe Tracer build, but it's a stasis sword, so there's a few different rolls that you can get on this. One of the rolls that I'm going for is this one right here. So it took me 4 GM completions plus claiming the free Adept Slammer from Zavala, because I had 10 ciphers. So on this claim from Zavala, I got the God roll, right? So that's another reason why it's important. Zavala could be holding your God roll in his inventory with your 10 ciphers. So don't forget to go see him. Eager Edge and Cold Steel, this is just kind of a utility roll, right? So I can use this for, like, if I want to farm like Hero Nightfalls or Vanguard Ops, or just run around Neo Muna, Terminal Overload or something. I can get around the space very fast and just get stuff done quickly with Eager Edge. Cold Steel is another utility perk and damage perk with stasis. You can, like I said, you can slow and stun unstoppables and overloads because it applies slow stacks and freezes targets. So for this roll here, if you combine that with say Whisper of Durance, which increases the length that targets are slowed for, and Whisper of Fissures, which increases the damage and size of burst of shatter, right? So you're going to be slowing and shattering targets, then obviously you're going to maximize the amount of damage that Cold Steel can do on the Slammer. The other roll I'm going for, which I haven't got yet, but I might hold on to this Chain Reaction one for all, just for fun. But I want a relentless strikes and bait and switch because that's going to give you the most amount of damage and total damage. Technically, one for all is a higher damage perk than bait and switch now, but it's not really practical, right? I want my relentless strikes and bait and switch roll to be for boss damage, basically. And if I'm doing boss damage, I'm not going to be focused on killing ads at the same time, which is what you need to do to get one for all proc. You need to hit 3 separate targets. In some situations that can be doable, so it could be a good perk to hold on to just in case you need it for some niche situation. But yeah, I think that basically covers it. So yeah, I plan on doing a video for a couple runs farming this, because like I said, I only really covered this on Night Stalker, and I didn't really go into the build that much, but most of you are, I'm sure, familiar with Night Stalker and Omnioculus and how good it is, so I don't really need to do like a full gameplay to show you how effective it is. But I do want to do a Titan run, and I want to do a Warlock run, and I want to work with the surges in the GM to provide more information on how to work with surges, because it's not just about stasis and solar. It's about rocket launchers. It's about overcharged weapons. It's about the threat. It's about the champions that you have to deal with. It's about the other modifiers, and it's about what artifact mods that you can benefit from, like overcharging weapons with these origin traits, right? So there's a lot of various factors, and all these surges are not stackable, so it's just as long as you have some weapon or ability that falls into some type of surge somewhere, most of that is pretty irrelevant to strand or stasis and solar being the weekly surges, right? There's so much that you can do. So like I want to do a Arc Titan build. I think you can look forward to that. I'll try and do a run and show the gameplay. Arc Titan has a lot of utility for unstoppables and overloads, and you can still benefit from many of the same surges, right? So for example, Night Stalker does not benefit from the weekly surges, the subclass. Void is not getting any extra damage, but it doesn't matter on Night Stalker because this subclass is a utility subclass, right? I'm not using it for damage. I'm using it to go invisible, make my teammates invisible, give everybody damage resistance, get those revives off, survive, be the last man standing, debuff enemies so that my teammates can do more damage to them. So that, that's the principle. You got utility subclasses that it doesn't matter if they're matching the weekly elemental surge, right? In fact, sometimes it could actually be worse to use a subclass that matches the weekly surge. So I'm going to go over that in the Titan Warlock videos. You can look forward to that. I'm going to cut the video now because it's already gone on for a little bit longer than I'd like. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, hit the notifications. I would greatly appreciate it, and leave a comment. See you in the next one.